Good morning, everyone. This is Nikachu, Merfolk Master, and we are here with day 135 of Coffee and MTG, the morning talk show, where we discuss all things Magic the Gathering. Oh, first half of the show, you better bring on the questions, the discussion, and both myself and the community, where we've got the answers. In the second half of the show, we do deck list review. So if there's a 75 for Modern, Pioneer, Historic, sometimes Standard, bring it to us. We'll review it and we'll give the feedback, both myself and the community. We got a mastermind here to help you bring your deck list to the top tier. Thank you very much. Join me and everyone. Let's brew up a cup of coffee and let's brew up the Magic conversation. Ugly Hood Rat first, just waiting in the weeds, waiting for the live notification to go on. D Canadian Bacon, also good morning. Now, what I would love, and I don't know how to get this to work, is I would like to have music while we're doing this. How do I do that? How do I get music? Camera, general, audio avatars. That means nothing to me. I don't know how to include music in all this. For example, if I play this, can anyone hear it? Let's see. Can anyone hear this? I'm playing something. Your background looks like an 80s vector art. A lot of people have been telling me that I'm in a bathroom. If I'm in a bathroom, then I'm in a I got from like 2 or 3 completely separate sources. They asked me, am I in a bathroom? How long till Walking Balista is banned? No, you can't. No, we cannot hear it. All right, then we don't have music. I gotta figure out. I know you can have music while you're doing this. I just don't know why we. I just don't know how to enable it. And like, of all the things, this morning talk show should have music. Okay, how long until Walking Balista is banned from Historic when Kaladesh Remastered is released? Ooh, good question, because the Heliod deck is still out there. Probably soon, actually. You know what? I think, wow, they didn't think about that very well, did they? Yeah, so I heard they fixed Smuggler's Copter, because there's no Smuggler's Copter in Kaladesh Remasters, right? It's like a 2/3 2-mana, it's like a 2/3 flyer now with no abilities. It's like it's a pile of crap. Oh, Ballista isn't in Remastered. There we go. They did, so it wasn't a mistake. They knew. It was, the writing was on the wall. I mean, this already is starting to become a problem in Modern. And by problem, I mean it's right now it's a playable deck, but it will be even more playable in paper. So, of course, the evil combo of Walking Balista comes to play. You know, whatever, counters, blah, 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 but in combination with Heliod. Sun's Crown. Oops. Oh, Sun Crowned. You give the Ballista lifelink when it has 2 counters. You remove a counter, deal 1 damage. They gain life. Heliod triggers. Put a counter on a creature you control. Put the counter back on Walking Balista. Now it has 2 counters, and you just do this all over again until your opponent's dead. Very easy 2-card combo. Basically, you know, a Splinter Twin in Historic. Everyone would be playing it, and it has an easy shell too, right? There's already a mono white life gain deck that was in the early metagame of Historic, and all they would do is just add Walking Balista, and boom, they can just win in one spot. So anyway, it appears that they saw it coming, and they decided Ballista is not in the remastered set. They left Collected Company. That's interesting, because that can be played fairly. That is possible. So let's get Collected Company. Collected Company is a very interesting card, because this card has seen play in fair decks, spirits, some very early iterations of humans. What else? Is that it? But this card has generally been used in unfair ways, like in combo elves, and now we have Heliod Company and Counters Company, and the earlier versions of Counter's Company, like Abs and Coco. This card is actually usually used to enable combo decks, but it most certainly can be used as a value card. I mean, in Standard, it wasn't part. It was part of just like these 4 or 5 color good stuff decks. Just get the good creatures in play, and that's it. So that was very interesting that they let this card slide. And I think for the most part, it's today it's not a problem. Tomorrow, who knows? Who knows? The stream is the 2001 A Space Odyssey of Merfolk Twitch streams. Should I have different colors in the background? Should I have different colors? I can change the colors. It's warmer now. What if I give this one yellow? No, I don't want you. Oh, don't. Oh, no. I don't know. It's either one or the other now. Oh, good. Yeah, we have something different. Nah, screw it. I want my blue and purple back. Bringing blue and purple back. Oh, these floodlights are so finicky. Okay, how about you both go? There we go. No, that's not what I wanted. I want you purple, you blue. There. I'm not changing it. We're sticking to it. We're sticking to it. Anyway, good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. The conversation is underway. Merfolk and Historic. And maybe we should play Merfolk and Historic with Yorion. Yorion's still playable in Historic. And we actually might have, I mean, I didn't think about it very deeply, but I mean, there are a lot of things to blink in Historic between Silvergill Adept, Merfolk Branchwalker. So if anyone has not heard, M. Hayashi is trying to build Merfolk with Yorion in Modern. And then it made me think, well, you know, maybe this is possible in Historic. We've got like 8 1-drops. We can include a few other random ones, but there's like quite a few blink targets. We've got Merfolk Branchwalker. We have Silvergill Adept. We can include more things to blink, like what's it called? Merfolk. What's the Double Explorer one? Can't remember the Double Explorer one. Yeah, he beat me. It wasn't exactly. Yeah, it was like Shadow Zoo because it was a Jund deck. Jade Light Ranger. That's right. Jade Light Ranger. No, but that's it. That's all I can think of. There might be more things to blink. There's also the possibility that, let's say you play Kumena, that you can tap a bunch of things, draw cards, and then play Kumena. So then play Yorion, blink everything, get them untapped, and then draw more cards again. It's funny you would say that, Cahoots. So what also M. Hayashi did was it would make it harder to draw Vial, and it would just make the deck less consistent, period. But he was playing with Serum Powder, which says, anytime you could mulligan and Serum Powder is in your hand, you may exile all cards from your hand, then draw that many cards. So the point is, if you have Serum Powder in your hand, but you don't have Ether Vial, you can opt to just take a free mulligan after this. Yeah, but he didn't keep... well, anyway, I'm very skeptical of this card. I am really skeptical of this card. I'm going to have to pay really close attention to M. Hayashi's series to see how good Serum Powder is and how good Yorion is. So far, we did not see actually... I encourage you to watch the series and watch the video, but... well, first off, he had winning positions without Yorion in both games that he won. Yorion wasn't necessary. I play-tested Serum Powder yesterday. No, not in Yorion Merfolk, just in regular Simic Merfolk. And it ended up being catastrophically bad. It was actually really bad. The problem is, what do you do when you have a hand with Ether Vial and Serum Powder in your hand? Like, you keep it? If you keep it, now you're actually down. You're down a card. So the hands that are good that have Serum Powder, you have to keep. We'll generally want to win without ever casting Yorion. Anyway, Serum Powder, I saw it like 10 times, and I snap lost the game the 8 times that I found it. It was a very bad top deck. Like, it was a very bad top deck. And maybe, now, I'm talking from a Simic Merfolk perspective. Maybe in a Yorion Merfolk perspective, it's a bit different because you always have that 8th card in your sideboard that you can reach. So in the games that you have Serum Powder, it's not that bad because you know that a Yorion is coming, is on the way anyway. And you can also just use this to have the mana for Yorion. I don't want to say ramp, because we don't technically ramp into Yorion, because you pay 3 mana, put Serum Powder in play. Let's say you have 5 mana by turn 4. You don't have Yorion in hand. You have to pay another 3 mana to put Yorion into your hand. Wait, a 3 CMC mana rock isn't good in Modern? So again, I'm just, because it was interesting that he said that, you know, he wants to make the Ether Vial hands more consistent. Then it's, to some extent, we should want to make normal Merfolk hands more consistent. But this was a really dead draw. It was a very bad dead draw. The times and I drew it a lot. It was miserable. But remember, I was just trying it in Simic Merfolk. I did not try to play it in Yorion Merfolk. I will say though, I played against like 3 attrition-based decks, and when I was up against 1 combo deck, I liked the idea of having Serum Powder in my deck, and maybe I could still sideboard better. In every control and attrition-based deck, I should have sided this card out, because this was just, I mean, it was straight dead, and I learned that halfway through the league. But it did give me a sense of security when I was up against combo decks. I was up against 1 combo deck. I lost to it anyway, but because I would have access to a card that helps me mulligan towards my counter spells. So, but my biggest problem, and I had this situation a lot, I have a really good 6-card hand, but Serum Powder is in my hand. Like, I had a 7-card hand with Serum Powder, and I can't mulligan this thing. And a nice thing, I will say, is some benefits that I saw out of Serum Powder that, let's talk a little bit about Serum Powder, because I did play test it yesterday, because I was fascinated. There are some cool things about this. Let's say you mulligan with Serum Powder in your let's say you take a mulligan and you see a hand with Serum Powder. You can very easily just put it on the bottom of your library, right? You don't need to keep this thing in your hand. There's definitely a lot to learn about mulligans and sideboarding with Powder. But I ended up having a lot of hands where I have a very good 7-card hand, except it had Serum Powder, and I wish it was something else. And top decking it was really brutal. It was game ending. I didn't necessarily always lose the match, but I lost the game. Snap lost the moment. I'm like, I need 1 more creature, Serum Powder. Well, damn it. Oh, the stream is in the podcast category. Thank you very much. Let's get the hell out of this podcast category. We are not a podcast. I don't care how many people say so. I am a streamer now. I stream Magic the Gathering. He mulled 3 times and kept a non-Ether Vial hand. I've been trying the Yorion list the whole day yesterday and a few games today. How was it? I am still interested in Yorion and Merfolk. Like, if we get a free card from out of nowhere, I think that's really cool. There's just so many things to try. And especially if we start going into a more grindy metagame, I mean, it will be perfect. Why not try to build a Yorion list on stream? Because I let people like M. Hayashi do this. There's so many things you can build in Merfolk that I just cannot do everything. And so far, and I actually would like to back away from the experiment, like too much experimentation. I'm doing a lot of experimenting. Just want to be playing some solid winning decks, get those 4 1s and 5 0s. That being said, I am going to experiment today with thieving Skydiver. It's I before E but for a lot of things except not, including thieving skydiver, whatever. So thieving skydiver, blue and a generic 2/1 creature, flying, has kicker. Kicker can't be 0. When thieving skydiver enters the battlefield, if it was kicking, control the target artifact with converted mana cost X or less. If that artifact is an equipment, attach it to thieving skydiver. So initially looking at this card, it looked very poor for Modern because at least it didn't look like we had any room for this card, because the stealing artifact ability did not look that appealing to me. It looked very underwhelming, in fact. It was actually pretty poor. I think I'm underrating the flying aspect of this card. I think flying Merfolk might be very valuable. And the fact, I mean, I know we had, what was it, something Dancer? What is it, Sky Dancer? No. Something Dancer. What's the other Merfolk that dances in the sky? No. Got the wrong one. There's a Merfolk that, no, not Wind Robber. There's a Merfolk that if you have another Merfolk in play, it has flying. That's too situational. So your opponent can just kill that Merfolk and then you lose the flying. Thieving Skydiver has built-in flying. Because I'm finding that my Smuggler's Copter is actually one of the best cards in my deck right now. This evasive creature is really, really important. It's one of the best cards in my deck. It's one of the best cards in my deck. So I actually want to like lean a little bit harder on flying Merfolk and see where I can take it. And I will see if it's worth it. There are definitely games where I'm up against spirits, humans, Death and Taxes, Eldrazian Taxes, where I will like steal an Ether Vial or something, or even against the Stoneblade deck, we're late in the game and I have like no answer to Sword of Fire and Ice, but then we steal the Sword of Fire and Ice. Thieving Skydiver will be there. But outside of that, I think the main purpose of Thieving Skydiver for me, and there's going to definitely be situations where I steal a Walking Balista. They have a Ballista on one where I have a Lord out, and I play Thieving Skydiver, and I steal the Ballista, or basically make them sacrifice it. Do you think we can unban jitte in Modern? Yes, I actually easily we can unban jitte in Modern. I actually have a video on that if you want to look it up. Just look up I'm pretty sure you can just YouTube unban jitte and it'll show up. Lord Magic says, I played Yorion Fish for my league this week. How did it go? You don't have to give us spoilers. I don't understand how M. Hayashi does it. For a while, I thought he mulliganed more aggressively overall, and that's what I'm doing wrong. Then I watched the first match with Yorion. He uploaded to YouTube, and he kept a land with 2 Castle Vantress as his only lands. And I think he did it on the play, too. So, like, there was actually a really good chance that the hand did, like, nothing. But it had Chalice of the Void in a matchup where Chalice of the Void was, like, almost at its best. So I think that was his rationale. And, like, mulliganing against Death Shadow sort of sucks on the play, so... I think that was the circumstance. He was on the play versus Shadow. Was he on the play versus Shadow? Maybe he wasn't. No, because I think he won 2-0. So he might have been on the draw for that game. Which means he had an increased chance of drawing an island for his hand with 2 Castle Vantresses. I just hate the idea of ripping a 5-lander with shitty 1-drops and Serum Powder. What the fuck do you do there? Well, you use your Serum Powder. Like, that's the point. So if you have a crappy hand and you have Serum Powder in your hand, you get a free mulligan. That's the idea. I hate the idea of having a good 6-card hand with Serum Powder in it. Like, that I don't like. I don't want that to happen. Because then now it's like I intentionally mulliganed. And I hate mulliganing. I wish I just didn't have to mulligan at all. I really hate mulliganing. It's my best hands are when I can keep 7 cards. I don't know how to reduce the number of mulligans I take. I really don't want to start a game with 6 cards if I can help it. What matchup am I considering Thieving Skydiver for? Every deck that has creatures. Basically, I want free, easy, evasive damage. So let's get back to Thieving Skydiver. This thing can get bigger than Smuggler's Copter. You know, it's a 2/1 creature, but then 1 Lord, you attack for 3. That's equal to a Smuggler's Copter, but then when you get the next Lord, now you're attacking for 4. And flying creatures are not easy to kill. Or flying creatures are not easy to block in Modern. Like there's a lot of decks that have no flyers, period. So if I just go to the skies, thieving, skydiver, and copter, I'm hoping for some good stuff out of it. Definitely agree on sticking to the fundamentals. The stock lists are doing very well, so experimenting has a lot of risk at the moment with not much upside other than being entertaining. But winning stock lists are better content, in my opinion, than sketchy experiments. I agree as well. Windrobber comes at a well, I mean, I probably should experiment with this, but I'm not interested in any more 1-drops than Kamena Speaker. Problem with Windrobber, if I really want an evasive 1-drop, I would just play, what's it called? Something cloaked. This Cloaked Herald. It's a 1-drop, 1/1, completely unblockable. Windrobber comes at this massive disadvantage of my opponent milling a card into their graveyard, which is very relevant right now in a world of Croxes, Tarmogoyfs, Uros, what else? Like the graveyard is just feeds so many decks that I think Windrobber is. I mean, honestly, I didn't experiment with it. I didn't. So maybe it's better than it looks, and maybe drawing this card when your opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard is actually going to be great. But it's also going to be counter to our strategy of playing relics and emptying our opponent's graveyard. So, I'm not thrilled with this type of card. Really enjoy your stream. Any top 10 meta decks this month? Absolutely. I'll do it every single month. Want to give it a little bit of time though. I'll probably make a top 10 video in the second or third week of November. Lumberjack has something to show. Tell me if this version is better interaction between Bramblewood and Growth Chamber. Can even turn to kill with a perfect hand. What's the perfect hand? Okay, what is this? Oh, this is a deck review card. Okay. You will, if you get selected for deck review, we will check it out. So anyway, thieving skydiver. I'll have a light experimentation with thieving skydiver. Because my recent Simic list, I got a well fought and earned 5-0 with the night before I played in the Modern Showcase Challenge, and I went 6-3 in that event. So, I mean, solid stuff still works. And I just want to slightly adjust my solid winning decks. Food for thought. What would happen if for a month Wizards of the Coast banned fetches in Modern? For 1 month? I think it'd be interesting if they banned the fetches with the clause that they said they're coming back in a month. We're just trying something out. It might tank the price of the fetches because people might get this impression like Wizards is experimenting with something to see, you know, how much better or worse the format is without the fetch lands. But I think it would just hurt shadow decks the most because they demand losing life. And you could still do it with a bunch of shock lands, but your mana is not going to be as good as it was before. It's just better that you can fetch out those shock lands and then hit yourself. Yeah, Mathematic, he prefers the grindy lists. It's interesting how you and M. Hayashi have kind of distilled 2 different style of decks, Mono Blue Yorion versus Super Lean Simic. Because I'm still under the impression that I need to race a lot of decks. There's a lot of decks I still need to race. If the metagame is super heavy on attrition, which we might start to see, because I'm starting to see more of this Aspiring Spike Jeskai control deck all over the place with the Cleansing Wildfire. Like, this deck is starting to get more and more popular. And with that in mind, you know, maybe the way M. Hayashi builds his list, he'll just rip apart the grindy decks. It's just how it is. But when I play those slower versions of Merfolk, I just get wiped out by like really quick decks, unless they are weak to Chalice of the Void. If they're weak to Chalice of the Void, then it's fine, because he also runs Chalice for those reasons. It would absolutely shake up the format, like no fetch lands. Don't you wind up taking too many lands out of your deck that way? What are you talking about, Mikey J? A card that should be unbanned in Modern. No! No! Birthing Pod should not be unbanned. Birthing Pod would be a catastrophic mistake if they unban that card. There is like... Basically, if Birthing Pod's on... If you get to untap with Birthing Pod, you lose. You lose. Simple as that. Birthing Pod would be too dangerous. Because there's... and I don't... There might be more than one way to win with the deck. But there... as long as your opponent's tapped out, you would lose. And if your opponent's not tapped out, you will crush them anyway. I made a video about this, but we can like talk a little bit about it right now. We're talking about the Yorion list. No, you don't get it, Tense Terry. If you can search, tutoring things into play is completely different from Collected Company. Now, I understand Collected Company is more explosive, but it's not a guaranteed win. It's not a guaranteed win. It could put a lot of impact on the battlefield, but it does not guarantee a win, whereas Birthing Pod guarantees wins. No, it does not take a few turns to set up. It will win the game on the spot. I have a video on this, and that's why we cannot unban it. We can just go over the interaction here. That's okay. How does it start? It wins on the spot. Okay, you have your Birthing Pod out. If you untap with your Birthing Pod, what is it? I think you need... I don't remember the interaction now. I think you need a random 2-drop. How is this? Okay, hold on. It's like a 1-drop into... How the hell do we get into Renegade Rallier? And then we bring back... Oh, yeah. Okay, so you have a 1-drop. Okay, so we start off with, say, Birds of Paradise. Birds of Paradise. We're starting off with Birds of Paradise. We sacrifice Birds of Paradise. We get Corridor Monitor. Tense Terror, you could say the same thing about Amulet, but once you teach someone the sequence, that's it. It's over. They're dead. Okay, so we get Corridor Monitor. Next, you untap Birthing Pod. Then by the way, by the time you are on turn 3, because you'll go. I guess we should start the whole thing. Turn 1, Birthing Pod. Sorry, turn 1, Birds of Paradise. Turn 2, Birthing Pod. You have 3 mana in play. Okay, so turn 2, Birthing Pod. Turn 3, you have 4 mana in play. Sack your Birds of Paradise. Get the Corridor Monitor. Untap Birthing Pod. Next, use Birthing Pod to sacrifice Corridor Monitor. Get Renegade Rallier. Renegade Rallier says, Revolt. When Renegade Rallier enters the battlefield, if a permanent you controlled left the battlefield this turn, return that permanent card with converted mana cost 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So you bring your Corridor Monitor. You now go back. Go get your Corridor Monitor. Birthing Pod... the Renegade Rallier away. Get Restoration Angel. I think it's Restoration Angel. Yeah, Restoration Angel. Blink your Corridor Monitor. Untap Birthing Pod. Pod away the Restoration Angel. Get Kiki Jiki. That's it. You lost. You lost. Now, some people will say, oh, well, this is so easy to... Oh, keep in mind the amount of removal in Modern. All right, I got you here too, Tense Terry. You want to play that game? You want to play that game? Let's go back to the beginning. Now, I said that if you are tapped out, we will do this. If you are tapped out, we will combo off. Now let's see what happens when you're not tapped out. I pod away Birds of Paradise. Or no. Okay, either I can pod away or I will play a more grindy plan when you have a bunch of mana up. Imagine I play Voice of Resurgence. I just cast it. How do I play Voice? Let's say I cast Voice of Resurgence. And then I pod away my Voice of Resurgence for a Renegade Rallier. Now I got a token out of this, by the way. I got an elemental token. So Voice of Resurgence, enter the battlefield. I sacked it. I get a token now that's 4 power, because now Renegade Rallier says if a permanent left the battlefield this turn, return that permanent back to the battlefield. So I get the Voice of Resurgence back, and now you can't. And now if you want to play removal at instant speeds, you're screwed. And now I have, how much power do I have on the battlefield? I have 3 power from the Renegade Rallier, 2 power from the Voice of Resurgence, and I have 4 power from the token. And now if you want to play this removal game, you're really screwed. You're really, really screwed here. So here's the deal. If you have mana up, Pod will play this outrageously fantastic grindy game against you that will just crush your removal. If you want to tap out to compete with it, you lose on the spot. That's the situation with Birthing Pod. You will not beat this. You will not beat this. This is a very bad. This will be an absolute nightmare to unban. And the mana is so free right now. You can easily make this a 5-color deck if you want to. Or it can just be like Naya colors if you it can just be like Naya colors with a slight blue splash for Corridor Monitor. But anyway, this is why you cannot. Anyway, this is why we can't unban unban this card. Birthing Pod is banned and is never coming back. Why is Birthing Pod not a thing in Legacy? Probably just way too slow, is my guess. Good question. I mean, they have Deathrite Shaman. No, they don't have Deathrite Shaman. They have like no mana dork. Deathrite Shaman is banned. So there's like there's nothing that can ramp you into Birthing Pod. I mean, you have to fight through all the counter magic. Imagine with 3. Yeah, you could play with the fairy. I don't think it needs to fairy, to be honest. I mean, you probably could make a version with the fairy, but so like yeah. So the first thing that people need to understand is there is an instant kill. In the past, it wasn't an instant kill. You actually had to work really hard to assemble the combo and play. It took multiple turns. Now it's just 1 turn, you're dead. That's very important to know. Now we have enough combo pieces, you'll lose on the spot. That's the first thing that's very important. In the past, it didn't work out like that at all. You had to like, it took like at least 3 turns and your opponent never interacting with the board in order to combo off. And rarely the combo even happened. Now you can just combo off on the spot. And now we have such a good grinding game with Renegade Rallier and Voice of Resurgence, and I'm sure a slew of other creatures I'm not even thinking about, that's going to make it impossible. Like, even if you want to hold up the mana, which by the way is going to slow your game down. If you're holding up mana very early on in the game, not assembling your own board state, then you're going to be super far behind against a normal grinding plan by Birthing Pod. They might even just take a turn off. Like if I didn't have Voice of Resurgence in play, they could just pod away a Birds of Paradise, get Voice of Resurgence. All right, nice removal you got there. What do you want to do with it? So it's very easy for them to just overpower your removal. I mean, that was the point of Birthing Pod. Just grind you out. The side with a Birthing Pod will always grind out the removal. So there's a lot of people who think Birthing Pod should be unbanned, but they did not consider the fact that there is an instant snap turn 1 combo. And you could say there's more hate for Birthing Pod now. Like there's more artifact hate, but you need to have it. Because if you don't, you lose. It's as simple as that. If you don't have the artifact hate, like on the moment they play Birthing Pod, you lose. It's sort of like someone playing, I don't know, Charbelcher against you. They cast Charbelcher. What are you going to do? Because next turn you're dead. And this is a cheaper Charbelcher to get in play and a lot easier to play. Like the whole deck, Charbelcher, the whole deck can revolve, partially around Charbelcher. But Birthing Pod has a lot more accesses of winning the game. Charbelcher generally has 2 now. They have to go the Balustrade Spy route or the Charbelcher route. Anyway, Birthing Pod is gone. Birthing Pod can't come back. Now, Splinter Twin is always a way more interesting conversation. Because that card can come back. And it's really hard to tell how good or bad it would be right now. Yeah, so there's all those answers, and you need to have it. Like, you need to... It's not even clear... Oh, no, Trophy would be fine. Oof might be okay. Like, but you have to have those answers. Otherwise, your opponent has just a 1-card win condition in their deck. This is a 2-card combo, and this is debatable. This is a 1-card combo now. This is a 1-card combo. And after the the moment a voice is in play and you can sacrifice it, you can't do anything. You're just screwed. Or sorry, not a voice, a corridor monitor. Do you have the latest Cyborg Guide on Patreon? If not, could you go over Aethergust? I only found your Modern Challenge deck. I do have Cyborg Guides on Patreon, but I don't know to what deck list you are referring to. You mean the one that I just recently played in the Modern Showcase Challenge? I have like a deck list very similar to it, but I don't think it's exact. Could I go over Aethergust? Aethergust is still a good card. Aethergust is a great card right now. It's still good against the Titan decks. Good against the Titan decks, interacts against... What's it called? Neoform, although that's not a very big deck right now. Honestly, I think we got to be preparing for Oops All Spells. Sodek just won the Modern Showcase Challenge with it easily with Oops All Spells. So you got to be preparing for your Charbelchers and your Balustrade Spies. And Aethergust doesn't play against that. Honestly, today I'm going to be playtesting Mana Leak to give myself a little bit of something, because I need, with my Cavern of Souls mana base, I can't play Deprive. So I'm going to try. I know the risks with Mana Leak, but I just specifically want some hard counter against this, or soft counter against this deck, which I think should be enough. I don't think Pod should be. I mean, someone can go out there and test Pod if they want to, but it shouldn't be unbanned. It shouldn't be unbanned. I think the problem with Pod, when people have tested, is they just try to test the old versions of Pod. They don't try to test a newer version of Pod, one that will have those instant kills. While still, like, it doesn't take up many slots to put a Restoration Angel, a Kiki Jiki, a 1 or 2 corridor monitors in your deck, and then just fill it with value stuff. So you have that snap combo always available to you, but you can just play a really good grindy game against anything, against literally anything. Do you think it's time for tribal elves in the modern era? No, I do not. The modern meta, it still has too much prowess. Like, that's what kills elves right now. Too much prowess and enough black decks playing Plague Engineer. It's not a good time for elves. If there were enough humans and spirits and those other tribal decks, merfolk in the metagame, then I think if something can bring especially prowess down a huge peg, then I have a lot of confidence in elves. I wonder what game elves has against Uro. I imagine that might be a good matchup for elves. Yeah, the Pod deck will also have hate for the hate cards too. But like, again, you can just play a normal grindy game. You don't even depend on the Pod most of the time. Like a Pod deck, Pod might have a problem against prowess because it can snipe down the 1-drops, and that might be very important for mana. It might. I mean, of course, the Pod deck won't be undisputed champion. It won't have 100% win rate against everything, but it will just be, it'll have like some, like it might have like a 40%er versus prowess and then like a 70%er versus everything else. And of course there will be some combo decks that just play faster than this one, like Neoform. Maybe not. I mean, Pod can play any creature. Even if it would look disadvantageous to them, they could play, what's it called? Containment Priest. I think, you know what? The one thing I don't like about Mistcaller to fight the Oops deck is it hits one game plan, but it doesn't hit the other. It doesn't interact with Goblin Charbelcher. Now, I did consider it, though, because it's also okay. Again, it's like not great, but it's okay against the Heliod Company deck because they play Collected Company. Oops. Heliod Company is not a card. So anyway, this deck is getting really popular. And the deal is, but it only interacts with Collected Company. It doesn't interact with Eladrimri's Call or them just naturally playing two creatures. And one toughness creature is still pretty bad in the metagame. Or is Oof bad position right now and too much commitment? Well, Oof is maybe not too bad. Like Oof, what I would like is it shuts off Walking Ballista in the stupid deck. Won't shut off Skyclave Apparition, but shuts off Walking Ballista for what it's worth. Can hit a lot of the artifacts that the Oops deck plays, including Charbelcher. So I wouldn't say Oof is too bad. You know, maybe I'm underrating Oof. Maybe I should be playing with more Oofs. Hits my own Vial though, and Copter hits my Copter, and I really like Copter right now. But you can pod the answer. Potter is a tutor for everything. That's right. I do have, yeah, I have at least counter spells for that game plan. That's true. Would Pod actually be playable in Neobrand? Very unlikely. No, it's just straight up no, because Pod only goes up one CMC. Neobrand works because you can. Oh, actually, hold on. What's out? What's great? Maybe hold on. I imagine they still don't want to play that card. Okay, this costs 8 mana, and Allosaurus Rider is what? Oops. Oh, it's 7. Okay, technically you can pod away your Allosaurus Rider into a Grizzlebrand. That is a thing you could do. I don't know if they would still want to play that card, though. Jose Mona says, I top 8'd the Sunday challenge with Karn Mulet, and I can assure you the static wins some games. Absolutely. Absolutely. Karn the Great Creator, underrated card in Modern. That's why I tried to play it in Jund. So many decks should play Karn the Great Creator. This is a very underrated card. This is a very, very, very underrated card. Karn the Great Creator hits the battlefield, and that static ability just shuts down so much. So many decks. What card would get banned from Heliod combo if that happens? Probably just Heliod, because that's the enabler for the two combos. You can have Walking Ballista and Spike Feeder, but they don't do anything by themselves. But Heliod plus Spike Feeder, Heliod plus Walking Ballista is the winning combo. Also, congratulations. Not recommended for Merfolk unless you play the 4th Vial in the sideboard. No, well, but Vial on like turn 5 is not particularly useful. So I think, whoops, where's... I'm going back too far. Pretty sure that if this combo deck is out of control, that you just ban Heliod. I don't know what else they could ban. Like everything else works together pretty well. You ban Spike Feeder, they could. I mean, maybe they ban Walking Balista and they just say, okay, you can have an infinite mana combo. That's okay in the format. And like infinite mana can be beaten. Make no mistake. Infinite life. It makes infinite life. Infinite life can be beaten by infinite damage. It can be beaten by milling your opponent out, or just decking your opponent. You can lock the company deck out and then like just let them draw all their cards and they lose. What else? There are many ways to. So maybe they could ban Walking Balista, but I would just take a guess that they would ban Helold if the deck was a really big problem. Although it would kill the deck. I don't know. It's a good discussion. Here's the deal. Walking Balista. They would consider that a lot of decks play Walking Balista, Tron, Eldrazi Tron, and they like this card. Old-fashioned counters company. Maybe I don't know. They could ban because they usually don't like to kill off the deck. If you ban Helold, you kill the deck. The deck is dead. Yeah, does the deck deserve to live? Is the question. They would kill the deck. And honestly, Wizards tries not to kill the deck. When they ban things, generally they try not to kill the deck. Unless they really have to. So maybe they just ban Balista, but Balista is played in a lot of decks. Or they ban Spike Feeder? But that's such a weird card to ban. If they ban this card, they obviously ban this for the sins of another card. Well, Archangel is very expensive. Archangel is a you can't. There's a big difference between Archangel of Thune. I know what you're talking about. I mean, this is not even comparable to Helold because you can't collected company into this card, and it's much harder to Court of Calling into as well if you would want to play that card. I mean, they could play this as a replacement. And this is more vulnerable because I can target this with removal. It's not even close to the same as Helold. So with the life gain trigger on the stack, I can... So if they remove a counter from Spike Feeder, I can, in response, just kill Archangel of Thune and then not deal with this nonsense anymore. Ballista is not a fun card to deal with. I hate that card. It's good early game and good late game. So maybe Archangel of Thune is actually an argument that they would keep the combo around, because okay, they get rid of Helold, which is like indestructible, easy to Coco into, and then they give you, okay, you have this much weaker option if you want to. Oh, by the way, you actually have to get to 5 mana, which is not particularly easy in Modern. Your mana dorks are getting sniped off by lava darts. I think banning Helold would do something. This deck only exists because of Helold. Walking Balista has been in the format forever. Spike Feeder has been in the format forever. Archangel of Thune has been in the format forever. The only like particularly other addition that's sort of new is what's it called? What's the other card? The Tutor, the 3 mana Tutor for a 0 mana card. What's my opinion on Oops All Spells in general? It's an all-in combo deck. I think when people are prepared, they're going to crush it. When they're not prepared, they're going to get crushed. And people have put their guard down against Oops All Spells right now, so it's Sodek very comfortably, easily won undefeated in the last challenge. It's going to pop up. I think everyone has to be prepared. And you're going to be prepared. You're going to crush the deck, and then people are going to forget about it. They're going to throw away the sideboard cards, and then it's going to come back. Yeah, Ranger Captain of Eos. That was it. That was the card I was thinking. Ranger Captain of Eos. So this is like the only other new card that really got added to the deck. But aside from that, this combo has been in existence in Modern for forever. And it's not like people didn't know about it. Like this existed even before after Birthing Pod got banned. But it's just not good enough. Like it's just not good enough. 5-man is impossible to get to. It's very slow, and the creature can die to anything. Heliod, on the other hand, is indestructible, cannot be targeted by removal, like not even dismember or path to exile if the devotion hasn't been met. So it's just an enchantment sitting there, and also can be collected, companied into. I have so many times now lost to Heliod into Spike, a collected company, and all they find is Heliod and Spike Feeder. That is so frustrating. Turn 3, infinite life. I can't do anything about that. You don't have those free wins with Archangel of Thune. You don't get those free wins there. So the fact that you would have to replace Heliod with Archangel, you kill off so many free wins. And that's really the deal with the combo decks. You're just trying to mitigate the free wins. If you get rid of the free wins, combo decks are fair. Combo decks are fair. Ironically, even if Pod was legal in Modern, Oops deck would win anyway. Maybe. I don't know how Pod would adapt, but like the thing is, like, there are so many good utility creatures. There are so many utility creatures. I would imagine they would find a way. Feels like even if you are prepared, the deck can still crush you because it wins before you can play anything meaningful. No, that's not necessarily true. I mean, you can play, for example, you can play at instant speed with like Surgical Extraction. So you'd have to win on turn 1 specifically. There's real hate out there for 1 mana. Well, they can go back to the old Vizier of Remedy Druid combo, but like I would say the most successful version of that deck played Lurrus, and they were just the super low all-in combo deck. Because aside from that, the other versions were not successful. So, but I think Modern has all the tools to beat an Oops all spells deck. Not particularly difficult. But you need to be prepared. You need to be. If you're not prepared, you die. It's as simple as that. If you're not prepared, you will die to that deck. So the idea is like in game. Well, I mean, this is not particularly useful game 1. Some decks will actually have Surgical Extraction in the main, particularly the Shadow decks. They can have Surgical Extraction in the main. So you like empty your deck into your graveyard, and you can exile the Vengevines, and then your opponent just doesn't do anything from there. Yeah, Modern does have a lot of utility creatures, and they are fun to go against or use in the right decks. Can you name the top 5 most busted cards on the Modern ban list? MTG banned lists. Let's see. What do we consider the most? Well, okay, one of them is definitely going to be Birthing Pod. I would definitely consider that part of the most busted. But help me out here, people. What do we think is the most busted? Okay, Ayavugan. Okay, definitely Ayavugan is one of the most busted cards. It's a soul land. And made for some ridiculous board states. I could actually put Hogak. Okay, let's go through the clearest one. So like, no, not busted, not busted. Okay, we could put this on the busted category. Potential busted category. I don't really want to put Blazing Shoal on the category. There's like a lot of ways of interacting with this, and it's a 2-for-1. Bridge from Below. I bet at the time that it got banned, it was not busted. I bet one day it could have been, but at the time that it was banned, it was not. Chromox, I don't really think... Whatever, I think Chromox... I don't even know if Chromox deserves to be banned. Cloud Post... Some potential there. Fast mana is strong. Dark Depths, maybe. Yeah, honorable mention, Hypergenesis. But I don't know what a good I still don't know what a good Hypergenesis deck looks like. Is Dread Return really that good? Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Sacrifice 3 creatures. I've never really seen this in play in Modern. And it's a sorcery. They can't even do this at instant speed. Is Faithless Looting? I don't know if Faithless Looting enabled these really other stupid cards. So I don't know if it's so busted itself. I mean, you could say the same thing about Birthing Pod, but as I explained, Birthing Pod leads directly to a victory. This definitely no. This definitely no. This maybe. Definitely no. Definitely no. Okay, we can put Hogak for sure on this list. Maybe we can put Hypergenesis on this list. I don't know. At the very least, Hypergenesis is a really degenerate card. At the time, Krark-Clan Ironworks was ridiculously powerful. I don't know how good it would be in today's modern metagame. Faithless Looting is kind of busted for all the decks. Okay, but we're gonna talk about power. That was the question, right? What was the question? Oh, no, the question was the most busted. Okay, so but I'm going to sort of put that on the same lines as power. And I define power as you're forcing your will on your opponent. That's what I define power as. And I don't consider cards like necessarily like Ponder Preordain as like really forcing your will on your opponent. I can sort of do it with Oko. At first, I didn't think this was actually a powerful card, but it turns out over the course of a game, you actually enforce your will on your opponent. Everything they have is an elk, and you just overpower them with food and more elks than they do. So I can put Oko on this list, potentially. Lattice, I actually would put on the list. Now, it needs to be combined with Karn, but it was a snap win on the spot. Maybe Cruise. Maybe Cruise. Definitely not Vault of Whispers. Maybe Summer Bloom. No, this is a busted card. I mean, I could put Splinter Twin on the list. Two-card combo, but would definitely not put Sensei's Divining Top on the list. I don't even know why Seething Song is on the list. You can unban that card. Second Sunrise is just to kill off the Eggs deck. Rite of Flame, Punishing Fire, Preordain, Once Upon a Time. I don't know. How do we want to define busted? Maybe Krark can be on it, but then, okay. So many cards here. Krark, Birthing Pod, Cloud Post, Hogak, Hypergenesis, Oko, Lattice, Splinter Twin. I don't really consider this too busted of a card by itself. I mean, it's just an efficient card. Oh, you want to define it like that? Busted is something that's easily broken, doesn't have enablers to be good. But everything has an enabler. Okay. So under that definition, Krark-Clan Ironworks can't be on the list because it requires a deck being built around it. Same thing with Splinter Twin. So just singularly good cards? I don't know. I guess we can't even put like Birthing Pod in that category. I guess Deathrite Shaman would be in that category. To me, busted means that... Okay, yeah, what's the definition of busted? What's everyone's definition of busted? We'll take the average of all the busted cards. Simple way to define broken. Does it change how the way you play Magic? That's a pretty good... I mean, those are pretty busted cards. Seems to be a split between variance reducer enablers like Once Upon a Time and looting, whilst the other part of the list is just winners, threats that have to be answered. Misstep and Delver. I don't think Delver is that powerful. Busted, a card that would warp the meta around it. See Hogak and Twin. The meta was... Well, actually, no. Yeah, you could say the meta was warped around Twin, but there was still relatively... diverse, not as diverse as it could be. Hogak just completely crushed the meta. For me, it's whether or not the card makes something extremely dominant. Twin was dominant, but it was not extremely dominant. It was just the best deck. Like when they banned Twin, it wasn't like Hogak where there was like Hogak and like 4 other decks were allowed to exist in the metagame. It was like Twin and 20 other decks that were allowed to exist in the metagame. It just so happened that Twin was the best one. It was sitting up there for a very long time. Okay, so we're going to define the metagame revolving around those cards. If we do that, then we'll take... Okay, we'll start with Eye of Ugin. That's definitely Ugin. Because the format was all Eldrazi, 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 thanks to Eye of Ugin. So we could put Eye of Ugin in there. We could say Faithless Looting, because when Faithless Looting was at its top with Hogak, I mean, it was all Faithless Looting decks for the most part. I don't really like to include cards like this. Maybe we can revisit it later. Well, Dredge, they didn't ban Dredge when they banned Golgari Grave Troll, so... Hogak, for sure, Hogak. Krark-Clan Ironworks. You know what? I don't think they gave it enough time, but I think if they gave enough time to Krark-Clan Ironworks, it would have ended up being a Hogak situation. I think people were very slow to buy in and play Krark-Clan Ironworks because it was a very weird deck. People didn't want to even play the card. People didn't want to buy into the deck. But I think if they gave it enough time, the format would have warped around Krark-Clan Ironworks completely. I don't know if we can include Mycosynth Lattice. It's a very good card. Eldrazi-tron is a very good deck, but the format didn't really warp around Eldrazi-tron. Oko for sure did. A lot of Oko decks out there, but the whole format revolved around Oko. I don't think... I mean, Once Upon a Time was a very good card, but I don't want to put it on the list. Punishing Fire, definitely not. We could say Treasure Cruise. At the time, when Treasure Cruise was legal, like the best, cheapest deck was a Blue-Red Delver deck revolving around Treasure Cruise. And like basically if you're not drawing 3 cards off of 1 blue mana, you know, what's wrong with you? Tree of Tales, Umazawa's Jitte. Okay, so this is my list. The cards that everyone includes because there's almost no excuse not to. So Broko is not... No, Oko is definitely not coming back. Oko is completely Broko for forever. Hogak most definitely is not number 1. I don't think so. Maybe it is. It's close. It's close between that and Eye of Ugin. It's very close. What does Eye of Ugin specifically say? Colorless Eldrazi you cast costs 2 less to cast, so it's just the Eldrazi. If Ancestral Recall was legal in Modern, whoever isn't playing it is wrong. Well, I mean, at the time, Burn was playing it. I mean, that just shows how strong the damn card was. Skull Clamp, I don't think the format would warp around Skull Clamp. I'm not sure. I've never seen Skull Clamp in action. Anyway, okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 6. We actually have to kick out one of these. We have Eye of Ugin. Why don't we have a simple poll? Oh, but no, this poll is not very good because you'll just ignore some cards. So we have Eye of Ugin. How about you all put your own? I've got Eye of Ugin, Faithless Looting, Hogak, Krark-Clan Ironworks, Oko, and Treasure Cruise. How would you want to organize these? I could give you my top 5. I think my top 5, I'll write it out in chat. What would my top 5 be? I think my top 5 would still be like, what's it called? Eye of Ugin. Here's the thing. When in the Eldrazi metagame, there is no other good deck except Eldrazi. It's either Eldrazi or you're playing something that can't break 50% against this deck. Whereas with Hogak, there were other viable decks in the metagame, even though Hogak was winning more than the Eldrazi decks. Like there was still Izzet Phoenix, there was Mono Red Prowess, there was what else? There was Eldrazi Tron. Like there were other decks being successful in this Hogak metagame. But in the era of Eldrazi winner, nothing was successful. It's just Eldrazi. You're either playing Eldrazi or you're not. Because this card was just turn 2 Thought Not Seer was a little like impossible to beat. Then your opponent could play like 3 Eldrazi Mimics. So your opponent could play like 3 Eldrazi Mimics off of 1 Eye of Ugin. And then next turn play Simian Spirit Guide, Reality, Smasher. And then all your Mimics become 5/5s and you hit your opponent for 20 on turn 2. No, there wasn't. Nikachu, Hogak won by so much, even against main deck hate. There were other successful decks in the metagame. Top 8 still had consistently prowess decks, consistently Izzet Phoenix decks. There was a lot of Hogak. It did win by a lot, but other decks were allowed to be successful during the Hogak metagame. Other decks were not allowed to be successful during the Eldrazi metagame. I can imagine there were and I still wins the most unbanned in Modern. Well, I've never seen an unbanned Modern event since Hogak got printed, so I don't know who wins that one. But I imagine it's still Eldrazi. It's still Eldrazi. I think Arkham's Astrolabe belongs somewhere on there to a degree simply because it enables color piles. But we still have color piles. Like, that was the thing about Arkham's Astrolabe. It didn't prevent any of the color piles. We have, like, 4 color Omnath decks right now. It did nothing. Like, the Arkham's Astrolabe... Yes, to a great extent, it really looks like Arkham's Astrolabe could have lived and they banned Uro. Besides Champion of the Parish or Mausoleum Wanderer, what creature would you errata into a merfolk? Probably the Mausoleum Wanderer if you gave me the option. I actually would prefer to be more interactive than 100% brute force power, and Mausoleum Wanderer will still get in a lot of damage. Yeah, there's a lot of different Faithless Looting decks that could exist in the Hogak metagame. Hogak was still the best deck by a large margin. It filled up more top 8s than the Eldrazi decks did. But maybe that was because no one could converge on like a successful Eldrazi deck at the time. Okay, so what would I name? I think my number 1 Okay, if I were to give a number one does go to Ayavugan. If I were to give the top 5 most busted cards, just because at the time, especially with the power level of Modern at the time being a lot weaker, this was just overwhelming for Modern. The next best deck that could, at least against this, was Merfolk. And I don't think I had a positive win rate against it. I had Game, but I mean, Game is not the same. Turn 2 Thought Knot Seers and 20 power on turn 2, or even 50, or even like 12 damage by turn 2 was too much. Hogak didn't do that. Or maybe Hogak plus... Well, do you know what? Maybe Hogak plus... what's it called? Maybe if they didn't ban Bridge from Below so quickly, we could say that Hogak was the best deck. Maybe. Because they had like turn 2 mills, so didn't they? Mill for the win. Number 2, I would definitely still give it to. I would give it to Hogak. You could definitely put this number 1 on your list. I would understand, but for me, it's number 2. For me, it's number 2. It was a very, very strong card, with a lot of ways of interacting with Hogak. There were. The worst games were the ones where you're on the draw, where you don't get your Rest in Peace and play on time. Yeah, well, that's the thing. Ayavugan was fine until Oath of the Gatewatch and the cheap Eldrazi came out. Like, Ayavugan was fine so long as the cheapest Eldrazi was like 8 mana. Now, number 3, I guess, would be Oko. No. Maybe I'd give it to Treasure Cruise. Because that sucked up the metagame at the time. Because of Treasure Cruise, there were like 4 decks. There was Birthing Pod, Burn, Blue-Red Delver, and like some copies of like Jund and maybe Splinter Twin. But like basically all the Splinter Twin, almost all the Splinter Twin players ended up playing just Blue-Red Delver because it would just abuse Treasure Cruise a lot better. So we got that. Treasure Cruise I would put at number 3. Number 4, Oko. I would put Oko as number 4. Definitely the format revolved around Oko. The only decks that existed were the ones who could play it. You either play Oko or you're not playing Oko. Oh, I think my brother's here. And number 5, I could give it to... I think maybe it needed more time to prove itself, but I would give it to Krark Clan Ironworks. I think this card was ridiculously powerful. Hello. I'm here. Come on. I don't think the Modern community appreciated this card enough, or this deck, and it got like, it was so strong, but only one person was willing to play it, and it had, and you know, I can't remember what they named Matt Nass's win rate at, but it was like over 90%. I feel like there's a pretty big power level drop from Eye of Ugin and Hogak. Oh yeah. Well, another thing, like some of these cards were like completely unexpected. Like, okay, Eye of Ugin, everyone knew that Eye of Ugin was going to be busted the moment they printed the cheap Eldrazi. It was like, what the hell? We've got Eye of Ugin in the format. What are you doing? And then, of course, the deck was completely super busted. But Hogak was, no one really saw it coming. Very few people saw Hogak coming until they actually saw it in practice. And I guess you need to see what the deck looks like to understand why it would be so good. Like, without Stitcher Supplier, the deck would suffer a lot. Stitcher Supplier was like Ancestral Recall for this Hogak deck. ETB, putting 3 cards into your graveyard, and also being an enabler to tap and convoke Hogak into play. I mean, there were ways to interact with Hogak. The thing is, if Hogak was on the play, if the Hogak player was on the play, it was way harder to interact with Hogak. Way harder. Although you could still play like Leyline of the Void and it was okay. But that's another thing, like all your conventional graveyard hate does nothing to Eye of Ugin. Oops, I think it's behind here. All your conventional answers didn't work. Like, how do you beat this deck? What, ramp into a Blood Moon or something? It still wouldn't even be all that much. I mean, it would help. They can still cast their cards. I guess they still need to get a Wastes in play. It's crazy to me that Cruise and Dig are still legal in Pioneer. I thought they'd be gone by now. I also thought they'd be gone right now. They will be gone eventually. They might be gone eventually. Remember, there's no fetch lands, so it's harder to pull them off so quickly. I think eventually they'll get banned, but it's just a lot harder to enable at the moment. Yes, it's a static ability. So it's not even like Eldrazi Temple, so you can play multiple things. So particularly when it came to 2-drops, and that's what they played. They played Eldrazi Mimic, and they also played Endless one. So you just play all these things. You can play Endless one as a 2/2 creature. So you had these games often. They play turn 1 Eye of Ugin, play an Eldrazi Mimic, and like 2 Endless ones. And they have 6 power on the battlefield turn 1. Then your opponent plays a land, pass, and then you go, you untap, play like Eldrazi Temple into Thought-Knot Seer or something, attack for 8 because your Mimic got bigger. And as a tutor built in. They didn't use it that much though. They didn't need to. These games were over very quickly. I don't know if I ever saw anyone tutor for a creature with this thing. So the more people are looking at Eye of Ugin, the more they realize this card is really stupid. If, like in Unbanned Modern, the only thing worth banning is this one card, in my opinion. Just because if at least historically, when I looked at the no ban Modern, like top 32, it was just full of Eldrazi decks. Maybe partially has to do with the fact that there's a lot of people who play Eldrazi Trons, or they already have the Eldrazi pieces, and they didn't want to play anything else. But anyway, that's the case. I think Eye of Ugin is the most busted card ever banned, and they should have did it faster, and they didn't. And as a tutor built in, yes. All right, I think we've spent enough time doing this. Let's do some deck list review. We do that on this channel, as my brother makes a delicious coffee. Are you making a delicious coffee? Yeah. Or a crappy coffee? Eldrazi Displacer is very cheap. Okay. Oh, so, well, if people don't know, on this channel, we do deck list reviews. Here's the command. If you want to submit your deck list and have it eligible for getting reviewed on this channel, ! Deck review space. Give the URL to your deck list, and also leave any feedback. Leave any comments. Is it a budget deck? What format? I appreciate some of these things, and also let me know what you need help with. You want just help with the sideboard, if you want help with your mana base, the win condition. One thing's for sure, I've nailed a lot of people's mana base. They don't even know. I think that's one of the most common mistakes, is people don't know their mana base is atrocious. That the cards they have in their deck can't be cast with the mana that they have. And as we wait for these deck lists to come in, we're going to thank our sponsors, starting with themanabase.com, your home base for everything Magic the Gathering. And the Manabase is sponsored by Fusion Gaming Online. My favorite local game store, and the deal of the week this week is save 20% off all gaming accessories. Beautiful. Need a new deck box or binder for Christmas? Or maybe your loved one that needs a new deck box or binder? Go get it at fusiongamingonline.com. And also, we are going to thank Mana Traders, the premier place to rent Magic cards online, and the only way that I can play things like Karn the Great Creator in Jund, and spirits and all sorts of other tribes. Mana Traders is the way to borrow and try out decks before you invest in them, or just try out something new every single week. And you can support the channel with my Mana Traders link in the description below, or you can get 15% off your first 3 months by using my coupon code Nikachu. Wink, wink. Oh yeah, R.I.P. Alex Trebek. You heard Alex Trebek died? Yeah. You had to have heard it. It's like how do you miss things like this on the internet these days? The only way you can miss it is if you like lost connection to the internet for a few days. That's the only way that happens.
On one of those satire news sites, it says, host of wrong game show dies, and it shows Alex Trebek and Donald Trump. The wrong host died.
Okay, Lumberjack. Oh, Lumberjack was the one who submitted this earlier. Okay, so Lumberjack wants to know about elves. Hope you're still around, Lumberjack. Oh, Moontime Dweller. Not sure if you've covered it yet, but wanted to hear your thoughts on Mpyashi's Yorion Merfolk. I got to see it play out. So far, the first game, he won with Yorion in both games where he didn't need Yorion at all. So it was a win more card. So I got to see how it plays out. I play tested Serum Powder in a non-Yorion deck. I didn't like it at all. It was really bad, actually, but I can understand the value of it in the Yorion deck. Okay, where's this deck list? Lumberjack, let's check out your elves deck. Let's see elves in action. Okay. Elvish Mystic, Heritage Druid, Duraga Warcaller, Llanowar Elves, Nettle Sentinel, Bramblewood Paragon. What I like about this card is it gives you a little bit more game against Plague Engineer, because this card by itself is a 2/2 creature. Doesn't get killed immediately by Plague Engineer. But each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter. Oh, sorry. Each other warrior creature you control comes into play with an additional +1/+1 counter. I think there's quite a few warriors. Where's the warriors? This is a warrior. I wonder if Llanowar Elves is a warrior. This is a warrior. This is a warrior. Warrior. It's like warrior tribal almost. So there's actually quite a few warriors that can help protect your board. Collected Company. Is this the same list that Squat Chief played in the 5-0? It looks very similar. I think there was more Drago Warcallers. So there's like this really cool synergy with Turn Timber Symbiosis. So check this out. You can look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may put a creature card from among them onto the battlefield. If that card has converted mana cost 3 or less, it enters the battlefield with 3 additional +1/+1 counters. So if you look for a Warcaller and put 3 +1/+1 counters on it, other elf creatures you control get +1/+1 for each +1/+1 counter on Jiraga Warcaller. So basically, this is a lord for +3/+3 if you can find it off of Turn Timber Symbiosis. You want Glimpse back, so I have work more on it. So, question: what are you losing to? It's my biggest question. I imagine Prowess. But what are you losing to? It's a lot of mana, but like that's what Elves does. Elves makes a lot of mana if you don't interact with the deck. And at the very least, it plays like creatures. Prowess is very hard. I could suggest one card maybe to help you in that territory. Okay. First off, main deck is fine. We're not going to touch the main deck. Maybe you should have another Jiraga Warcaller. Maybe not. I don't know. Main deck is fine. I really don't want to touch it. Oh, you put the second Critterhoof Behemoth in your deck. I think that's good. It makes it a little bit more likely that you find it off of Turn Timber Symbiosis if that becomes becomes an issue, becomes a thing. Nykthos is not as good as you would think. That's why no one plays Nykthos in Modern. It demands devotion, and in the games where you don't. Okay, here's the deal. If the opponent is not interacting with the Nykthos only works if you have a lot of permanents on the battlefield. In Elves, if no one's interacting with the battlefield, you'll basically have infinite mana. That's just how Elves operates. It makes a lot of mana. Makes a lot of mana. Add a green for each elf you control. This is the Nykthos of the deck. right here, Elvish Archdruid. This will make a lot of mana. Just trust me. Now, if they're killing all the creatures and you don't have anything on the battlefield, Nykthos does nothing. So that's the deal with Nykthos. And so that's why, like, there are some cards that look really good at first, but no decks play it at all. You know, I think a lot of people like to jam Nykthos and Bitter Blossom. No decks play this. Why is that? There are good reasons for it. Stuff with Wrath is hard too. There's not much you can do about that, to be honest. And I don't think you should be too concerned because a lot of the control decks right now are not playing too many Wraths. They have some, but not many. It's between 1 and 2. So I think you should be okay. I do understand your prowess problem. I do have a solution. What's it called? Oops. So this is a possible solution. Shaper Sanctuary. It's a 1 green enchantment. Whenever a creature you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, you may draw a card. This actually might help you a lot against prowess decks. You can play this turn 1, and then on all the following turns, if they want to kill your creatures, you draw a card. Now, you still might get tempoed out. What leyline? Okay, I have a question. What leyline are you playing right now? Oh, Leyline of Vitality. Creatures you control get +0/+1. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may gain 1 life. Oh, you know what? I didn't even get to this card. I like this card. I like this card. I don't know if it's better than Shaper's Sanctuary, but I actually like the idea of you drawing, of you still protecting your creatures, but also gaining a lot of life. Actually, I like this card a lot. What's with the Emrakul? This has got to be a win more card. What is this for? Get rid of I don't tell me. Just get rid of it. Get rid of it. Gone. Get rid of it. It's gone. This I have no idea what this is for. There's no way this is good. Oh, for mill? Can't you race mill? Can't you just race them? You're like an aggro deck, basically. You're a combo aggro deck. I think you can combo off faster than they can mill you out. Get rid of it. Get rid of this thing. I don't know. Okay, if you really have an empty sideboard slot, I guess you can play this, but it's a bit unnecessary. I would not be preparing for the mill. Why not putting Gaia's Blessing? Because this deck can cast the Emrakul. They can find this off of Turn Timber. Yeah, but this deck can play the creature because they can tutor for it with turn or semi-tutor for it with Turn Timber Symbiosis. No, like here's the deal. I would just ignore mill, to be honest. I know the cost of playing Emrakul is very small. It's only 1 sideboard slot. So okay, I can get behind it, but I would not try to be fighting the mill deck. I think you can beat mill. Maybe not. Mill does play a lot of removal, like a decent chunk of removal. So maybe this isn't going to be good enough, but I would not try to beat that deck. I would spend the slots, take out Emrakul, I would like, here's the thing, Prowess is popular. How many cards do you have here for Prowess? You have I guess you bring in Ooze, but I wouldn't say that's a good card against Prowess. Because it requires so much mana. I would play Shaper Sanctuary in addition to Leyline of Vitality. That's what I would do. I would have at least 6 high impact cards against that deck. At least 6, maybe more. Because Prowess is everywhere. Like, I play against a Prowess deck 20% of the time. It's just it's too popular to ignore. Not sure what Reclamation say. What is Reclamation? Okay, I gotta ask you questions here. Okay, Lumberjack, what are all the sideboard cards for? Because I don't know. Yeah, Sanctuary in general is good in grindy matchups. Leyline of Vitality is not. I don't mind going all in on a bad matchup that's super common. So I mean, this card's obviously dead against everything else. It's narrow, but you need to beat prowess, or you're just not beating them. Period. Okay, you gotta tell me what's Scavenging Ooze for, what's Beast Within for, what's 3 Reclamation Sage for. Welcome, Spider Space. If you came on earlier, I would have brought you on the show. How's As Foretold doing? Leyline is for Shadow Prowess. Burn Ooze is my Graveyard Hate. Wreck for Dryad Bridge. Oh, you can blow up a Dryad with this. What's the Beast Within for? Wild Defiance doesn't protect your face. Burn will be shooting the face. I actually don't like Weather the Storm to counter Prowess. I mean, if they might not see it coming the first time, but they'll definitely see it coming the second time. It depends. Like, I think from the Prowess player's perspective, all they're going to do is they're going to play their Prowess creatures, and then they're not going to like go for a big turn unless they can win on the spot. So all they'll do is shoot creatures, attack with Prowess, wait for more creatures to come up, shoot them down, attack with Prowess, and they're not going to be playing so many creatures that you can really get them with Weather the Storm. I imagine you would think that, Spider Space. The As Foretold deck. Beast Within, because I don't like damping and wanted something different to get everything like Trophy. All right, you have a lot of mana. Anyway, the suggestions I made are the suggestions I will just stick to. I don't know what you want to shave for those Shaper Sanctuaries, but figure it out, and good luck. Thanks for submitting the list. And congrats on Chiefs 5-0 playing your list. All right, let's do another deck list. Well, I'm trying to do it within the range. Well, Shaman of the Pack. This is not a Shaman of the Pack deck. I know a lot of people want to play Shaman of the Pack. This deck is successful. The main deck is successful by itself. Also, when someone submit, I mean, unless I really need to make a splash, I just try to keep the deck as it is. Offbeat Heroes deck list has been chosen. Lucifer, Linguini, and Pioneer. Hopefully there's some Pioneer players here. So you have one, this is Yorion Tribal, basically. One Yorion as a companion. 3 Yorions in the main deck. You never have enough Yorions, really. You already are guaranteed a Yorion, but just in case that's not enough, you have more Yorions on the way. So the idea is I get Narset to Fairy. You can blink these things, which are nice. So like every single time you blink Narset, you get draw an extra card. Blink to Fairy, you get, but you'd like, they come back at end of turn, right? So there's actually a window people can hit you with instants. That's okay. But actually, you can't get instant value out of either of these because they're planeswalkers. I mean, it's still no, that's not true. Who cares? You'll like draw a card, then Yorion away. You don't get it immediately, but you'll get it next turn. Fatal Push, Final Payment, Flicker of Fate, Yahini's Expertise, and here's our blinking package: Omen of the Sea, Trial of Ambition. Oh, that's a good one. Oath of Kaya. Treacherous Blessing, Demonic. Is this a good one? I guess so. Doom Foretold. I'm not sure. I think your deck is a bit clunky. Maybe that's okay. I think the deck should have a few more things to do. At 1 mana, you have only 4 cards in this deck that interact at 1 mana. That's it. I would try to get that to 6 or 7. What do you think? What do you think, Spider Space? How many 1-drops can a control deck like this should have? And we have options too. We've got what's it called? Oh, what's the new one mana destroy target creature, and then kicker you can destroy planeswalker, or you can 1 mana destroy target creature or planeswalker, 2 mana or less, and then at 4 mana can kill something 4 or less. Or no, it's not. It's anything. Bloodchief, yeah. I keep spelling things EI instead of IE. So we have access to Bloodchief's Thirst. Potentially. Does actually, can the mana support it? Maybe not. You might not have a single black on turn 1 very often. So maybe my suggestion. Well, you have 10 black sources for turn 1. So not super often, but sometimes. Flicker of Fate and Demonic. I also think. Yeah, I think this is a bit cute. You should just have some solid cards. I think this looks really cute, and occasionally this will just kill you. Like you play, you could be 1 away from losing the game, and then you decide to play your Yorion, and then they counter it or something, and then you're like, oh shit, I just lose. And this is very expensive too. There should be enough value in just Doom Foretold and like just blinking once with Yorion, I would hope. Oh yeah, that's right. Especially since we're more than 80. We're actually more than 80 cards, so we actually need a lot of Fatal. We need more removal or more things to do at 1 mana. We even have Opt. I would take Opt too. I have no problem with Opt. You might not have Opt available on turn 1. Actually, this looks really hard to have Opt available on turn 1. You just have 4, 5, 6. Again, 10 mana. Opt is always good in Yorion. That's possible. I think the concept is fine. I can't remember. Do we have Supreme Verdict in this format? Like, don't we have Supreme Verdict? Yeah, we have Supreme Verdict. Why don't we have Supreme Verdict over, hey, say this? Oh, but you want to cast something with convert mana cost 3 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost? So after you wipe the board, what would you even want to play? Because you don't want to destroy it. I guess you can play Omen of the Sea. This, you already killed the creature, so it doesn't matter. You killed the creature, so it doesn't matter. Oath, Omens, and Trial. I think you should just play Verdict. Just play Verdict. It's just the better card. You have the mana for it too. Sideboard. You have 3 Supreme Verdict in the sideboard. You might as well have it in the main deck. So the concept is fine. All this stuff here is more or less fine. Demonic Pact might not. I would have to see it how it plays out. But I wouldn't get so cute with Yahini's expertise. I would just go Verdict, destroy everything, by the way. This doesn't kill all creatures. You're going really out of your way to play a 4 mana card that gets a second card in play, but most of them are garbage. Because Trial of Ambition makes your opponent sacrifice a creature when ideally all the creatures are dead. And then if there's one that isn't dead, you don't want to finish it off with a second card. You don't want to spend 2 cards to kill off the board. Just use 1 card. Oath of Kaya is great. You could go up on these. Demonic Pact, like, I don't know about the Demonic Pact. It looks very clunky. You have a lot of 4-drops in this deck. And you could potentially lose the game because of this. I don't know. Maybe not. You could always bounce it with Teferi too, right? You can bounce your own Demonic Pact to your hand. This might be okay, it might not. I have to see how this deck plays out. You have a lot. You do have a decent chunk of enchantments. I guess some counter spells could take up some of these slots, because I understand you do want to go heavy on the enchantments, otherwise the Yorion synergy isn't there. How do we win the game? Just with Yorion? There's no other way to win the game here? Because you can't donate this. You might want one other potential win condition. For example, Teferi Hero of Dominaria. Teferi Hero of Dominaria will, once it ultimates, exiles all your... I mean, over time, it'll exile all the... It's Pioneer right now. We're in Pioneer. It'll exile all your... I always found this like to be basically a win condition by itself, because once you get the emblem and you keep drawing cards, you exile all your opponent's permanents, and then you can very comfortably win over however many turns you need with a Yorion. Because currently, this is your only win condition, as far as I can see. Traditionally packed, Doom Foretold, Oath, Yorion, and Blinking, these win. Teferi Hero hasn't felt good in the past, since we are sorcery speed deck most of the time. So can you actually blink this Demonic Pact like really often? I mean, I understand you can definitely do... I mean, you deal a good chunk of damage to the opponent. Deals 4 damage to target creature or player. Busy at work. Spectral Sailor? It's just a creature. It doesn't get any blink value. This is mostly a control deck. Will you suggest I replace Pact with? Sometimes I feel like the deck is light on win cons. Yeah, more win conditions. Just replace it with more win conditions. The deck is totally light on win conditions. You don't actually have anything to win the game with, but I don't know if you win the game with this either. So why did you not like... Teferi Hero hasn't felt good since we are at sorcery speed deck most of the time, but that's okay. That's not too bad. Unless you have trouble. I mean, I think you can still play a sorcery speed game, because you can get more mana to play your final. You can play Hero of Dominaria, draw final payment, untap land, still play this. Oh, I see what you mean. We can't make use of the mana from Teferi Hero of Dominaria most of the time, because most of these cards are not instant speed. This is instant. This is instant. Oh, Shark Typhoon is not bad. That's a good idea. No, nothing in the ice. We don't have any... we have very few spells. It's mostly enchantments. Shark Typhoon is a good idea. That can be a win condition by itself in the late game. Actually, don't mind that idea at all. I can see now why you have like 3 Yorion in the deck. So is this like partially a burn deck? Okay, we'll keep the Demonic Pact, but you gotta have more 1-drops in here. Starfield of Nyx. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may return target enchantment card from your graveyard to the battlefield as long as you control 5 or more enchantments, each other Norn aura you control as a creature in addition to its other types, and has base power and toughness. I don't like this card. I mean, maybe this is okay. Yeah, I think it is too memey. I think you're right, it's too memey. I would like it if this deck tries to win off of very few things on the battlefield, just in case they got answered. I think the concept of the deck is good, though. I think it's very good. Okay, one of these are really good. Target opponent sacrifices a creature. That one's great. Maybe have another Oath of Kaya. I think this is a great one. I don't know how much I love this one, because you have to target. I imagine drawing 3 cards is great, but it doesn't interact with the battlefield. the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player sacrifices a non-land, non-token permanent. If that player can't, they discard a card. They lose 2 life. You draw a card. You gain 2 life. You create a 2/2 white knight creature token with vigilance. Then you sacrifice Doom Foretold. But this is not a permanent thing. Or is it like Doom is really good? Dance of the Man's 2 mana hunger as well. Return up to X target artifact and or aura enchantments cards with converted mana cost X or less. No, yeah, like screw these cards. Just like, look, you have enough. Yorion is enough. You got your 1 payoff. Now let's find good cards to get paid off with Yorion. Is what I'm trying to get at. Like even something like, because I think Yorion is a good enough payoff card. We don't need to return other things back from the graveyard. I just don't like that you have to sacrifice this. Are there no other ones that you can like get value off of? Oath of Kai I think is great. 3 damage to any target and you gain life. What's not to love there? Create a 2/3 blue. So for 5 mana, we get a 2/3 creature. Whenever this creature attacks or blocks, each opponent exiles the top 2 cards of their library. That's crap. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, and that player exiles a card from their hand. This card's terrible. This card is bad. Question: why are you trying so hard to recycle your enchantments? You have Yorion. Just play Yorion already. Just play Yorion. This is enough. This is ETB. Blink everything and play. Do these things go to the graveyard much? Well, some of them do. Is Treacherous Blessing Knight good? Anyway, I don't know what other enchantments there are, because I never look at enchantments that do things like this, but maybe look into more enchantments that impact the battlefield. I like this one. Impacts the battlefield. Impacts the battlefield. Oh, and you can recycle this one too whenever another cartouche. I don't think there are any cartouches here. Impacts the battlefield. Impacts the battlefield. Nuz does not impact the battlefield, so I find it a little bit dubious. The White Omen is decent. Omen of the Sun. ETB, create 2 1/1 white soldier tokens and you gain 2 life. Yeah, that's not too bad. Not too bad at all. Again, interacts with the battlefield. I like stuff that interacts with the battlefield. Potential win condition too, in theory, especially after you blink it. Anyway, play Verdict. Don't play this card. This is just a situationally... this will situationally kill all the creatures. You actually just want to kill all the creatures if you're going to play a board wipe at all. You don't have any problem getting these few cards. Like, you don't even have many things that synergize with this. Oh, you can play any cards. So you can play like... But none of these are that great at... I guess you can play Narset or Teferi. That's an advantage. You get 2 of these in play. Huh. Okay, I didn't think about these. Okay, quick question. Is this always a board wipe? I imagine no. There's like a green Stompy deck that ignores this a little bit. Omens has Flash for Teferi. Pioneer sometimes, but not always. Dump it. Screw this card. Scrap it. You don't need it. Forget about it. Tell it to go away. Gotta play. You have to play with better cards. You have 4 mana. You want to blow everything up. You have to blow everything up. So anyway, I have some. I hope that's a little bit of direction. Put you in the. I hope those. That's some advice. Put you in the right direction. Unfortunately, I don't know what cards to fill in some of these slots. Because I just don't know what exists in enchantments to help your. I would say, I guess, keep playing Demonic Pact. So long if you never lose the game with this card on the battlefield, or very rarely, like you need to lose the game like less than 10% of the time. If it's higher than that, scrap this card. Unless, I don't know. I don't know how to give a good judgment. Because I can see that it can give you a lot of value. But also by turn 4, your opponent's hand might be empty. So the first mode is like, okay. The second mode might be useless. The third mode is really good. And then after that, you have to blink it or you lose. I almost never use the lose the game part. Well, you're forced to, though. Every turn you have to choose one. So if the game goes on to the 4th turn and you haven't blinked this thing yet, you lose. That's my point. You don't get the option. But like I mean, the card is fine. The card's fine as long as you don't lose the game. Got no notifications. Oh, it's okay. Don't worry, you're here. I wouldn't say you're here on time, Branch Walker, but you're here. Anyway, good luck with the list, Offbeat Hero. Hope that inspired maybe some other people. And that's another thing. When we see these deck lists, other people can see the deck list and you're like, you know what? That's a cool idea. I know other cards that could go into that deck list. Maybe I can improve this thing and then make it a real deal. But unfortunately, right now, sorry, Mr. Goo, it's going to be it for deck list review for today. Now, we're going to still stream. We're going to stream on Twitch. But if I didn't get to your deck list or your comments, don't worry. We do this every weekday. Twitch.tv/Nikachu MTG, Mondays to Fridays, 9 o'clock a.m. Central Standard Time. And yeah, so thank you very much for the conversation. Spider Space, get in contact with me if you're up at 9 o'clock a.m. Central Standard Time. Would love to have you as a host. We can talk about that As Foretold deck that went 7-2 in the Modern Showcase Challenge. As Foretold, Spider Space says underrated right now. Everyone's sleeping on that damn thing. All right, so everyone, thank you very much for joining me today. We're going to get into some Modern Merfolk gameplay. We'll see you at the next cup. Take care and bye-bye.